That's right. Before we dive into any more, let's talk about BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from UFC to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get on a game of blackjack or poker or one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here. All right, top 5 running backs in the SEC. We did quarterbacks last week. We've done different position groups. I'm interested to see how our list compare this week. We had a lot of the same top quarterbacks. I'm interested to see if we have a lot of the same top 5 running backs. So number 5, we'll work our way down from 5 to 1. Who do you have as number 5 running back in the SEC, Chris?
I'm going to take the cop out here, and I'm going to give you a tie. And part of this is because I want to know health on these guys both, okay?
Okay.
And my tie is between Montrell Johnson Jr. at Florida, who's had a knee scope, and he's being held out of practice right now. I think he's going to be okay. I've maybe got more questions about Rocket Sanders at South Carolina. He is allegedly okay, but they're not scrimmaging him. I don't know if that is just a let's keep this guy healthy and keep the bubble wrap on him, or there's something a little bit more serious there. But those are two guys that could easily not just be in the top 5. Either of them could be one if they're healthy, but I've got some questions there. So I will take a cop out and put them both at 5 as a tie with the bullet just because I don't know. So that's where I'm going to start.
All right. Rocket Sanders, I considered him. I just feel like after last year, him being injured, it's hard to know what he's going to be coming back. I mean, everybody hopes he's going to be the same back he was. So I went with my number 5 is Marcus Carroll from Missouri. He was an all Sun Belt guy last year, rushed for over 1,300 yards. Was a big part of Georgia State. Now he steps in at Missouri. I think he is going to step right in and Cody Schrader was a special player last year. But as I was talking with our friend Gabe DeArmond there, who covers Missouri, he brought up a good point. Was Schrader's success all just him, or was it the extraordinary offensive line that they had and that they have? And I think this line is going to open up for Carroll to work a lot this year. They have a really good offensive line. And so I think we'll see a lot of Marcus Carroll. Now he'll have to share some time with Nate Noel, the App State transfer. But I think Marcus Carroll is going to get a lot of carries and have some big numbers this year. So I'm going to say Marcus Carroll, number 5 in the SEC. And I think Missouri is going to have a successful year as well.
Chase, he didn't make my list, but he was under heavy consideration. I think he rushed for nearly 1,400 yards last year at Georgia State, just under 5 yards a carry. I think in terms of guys who ran for the most yardage last year at any school, I think he's way above the pack in the SEC. But just my question is, how does he transition to the league? And there's some other really good backs ahead of him that I couldn't make room for him. But look, I think these rankings are so close that if Marcus Carroll ends up number 1 or 2 at the end of the year, I'm not surprised. I think the margins between these guys are about that much.
Yep, I agree with you. All right, who was number 4 on your list, Chris?
I have Gavin Sawchuk at Oklahoma, a guy that is, I think, primed for a bigger volume role. He averaged over 6 yards a carry, catches some passes. You know how much I like that offense. I've got some questions about that offensive line and cohesiveness, but I feel like Gavin Sawchuk was a deserving name on this list, and I've got him as my number 4.
All right. I went with my number 4. Well, let me respond to that. I like Gavin Sawchuk a lot. I think it may take a little bit for him to get going, but I think once he does, he's going to be a great back in the SEC. So I like that. I think he would have been probably my number 6 probably on this list.
Yeah.
I went with Dylan Sampson of Tennessee. I think he is primed to have a really good year this year. He's kind of finally stepping into that starting role. 604 yards last year, over 5 yards a carry last year. I feel like, in his 2 seasons, 1,000+ yards and 13 touchdowns. And now he gets the expanded role of starting. And so I think Dylan Sampson is fun to watch, and I think he will be this fall, and could be dangerous if this Tennessee team is what we think they are. I think Dylan Sampson could be a big part of that.
Chase, I love that pick. I love it so much. I had him at number 3. And
Okay.
the reason I did it, I think that I want to see what he does on a bigger volume of work. He's always been part of a committee, but I think he has led them in yards per carry 2 years straight. And I think his career average is around 6 yards a carry. He's been extremely productive when he gets the ball. And I even thought about elevating him all the way to number 1. I just had a couple guys in front of him that I feel like have proven just a little bit more so far and have had to be more volume backs for their teams. But he is very, very close to the top.
Yeah. I'm excited to see him play this year. My number 3, I went with one of your number 5 players, and that's Montrell Johnson from Florida. He's had 2 straight 800-yard seasons, and now he gets to be the guy for the Gators. And I think he's ready for that. I mean, you look at the rest of the running back room, you got Trayon Webb, and then a high school guy in Jaden Ball. So Montrell Johnson's going to get a lot of touches. Again, he averaged over 5 yards, about 5.4 yards per carry a season ago. I think he and you mentioned, and I'm not looking at injuries right now. I'm just looking at pure, this is the skill that they have and where they fit in. And so, is he 100%? We'll have to see. But just looking at him on paper, looking at his game, I think he's going to have to be a workhorse for Florida this year. If they're going to have success, that he's got to be the guy.
And if he's healthy, he could easily be number 1. He's always kind of been in a timeshare. But remember, he was really good at Louisiana for Billy Napier a couple of years ago, too, as a true freshman. So he's no longer that timeshare. I think, to me, I use the injury as a cop-out a little bit to get 6 backs on the list and justify it that way. So maybe I used a little chicanery there, Chase. But he could easily be up, top 2 or 3 back in the league.
Yeah, for sure. He really could. So I got Montrell Johnson 3. Who is your number 2, Chris?
I have Jarquez Hunter of Auburn. And again, a case where he's going to take on a bigger role. He's a physical back. The offensive line at Auburn's not been outstanding, maybe not to the level that some of these other guys have had the luxury of running behind, but he's had such good production at Auburn across his career, including freshman year when he was a backup, and I think was their most productive guy on the team per carry. So I feel like Jarquez Hunter may not be the splashiest guy on this list, but I feel like in terms of career accomplishment, there's not a lot of guys that can beat what he's done.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I have Jarquez Hunter also at number 2 on my list. He's had 8 100-yard games in his career, 20 total touchdowns with the Tigers, and I feel like this year more than ever is his year to go. I mean, Peyton Thorne can run some. He shows some burst of speed, but not consistently, and so they've got to have a good back. Jarquez Hunter is it, and I think. If all, and they've upgraded the wide receiver room, which is going to help offensively as well. But I think they've got to start and center around the run game first, get it established with Jarquez Hunter, and I feel like they kind of have a 3-headed monster at running back as well. When you look at it, Jarquez Hunter, Jeremiah Cobb, Damari Alston. Those three guys are outstanding backs, and Jarquez Hunter kind of leading the charge there is a fantastic back. So yeah. Similar there, both Jarquez Hunter number 2, and I imagine I could probably guess your number 1, but I'll let you say it anyway.
Yeah, I think we have the same number 1, and maybe this is unfair, although I don't think it is because this guy's been very productive. But hey, when you are running behind four guys who got some All-American mention and you've produced before, I think that's probably a good sign that big things are ahead. It's Trevor Etienne of Georgia who changed teams from Florida. He's no longer that time share with Montrell Johnson. I don't know how much Georgia is going to give the ball to one guy and let him run for 1,500 yards like Georgia used to do. It feels like it's been a committee of guys the last few years. But, I think this may be one of the better backs they've had in a few years too. So I will bank on Trevor Etienne being at or near the top of the list, and I'd be shocked if he's not your number one also.
He is my number one also. And again, he had a great career at Florida as he's transferred now to Georgia. Man, he's a workhorse. He's a guy you want on your team on the field running the football. And I think he is just a bonus to all the talent that Georgia has. And he will fit in nicely, I feel like, in Athens and help bring some success to Athens. And yeah, if Georgia could have gone and got any running back, this is the guy I feel like they could have gotten over anybody, and they did. And I think that's really good for Georgia that they were able to.
Chase, I'm just thinking as we've gone through all these guys, I left out a guy who ran for nearly 1,400 yards at his previous stop. And I squeezed a guy on there with a bullet who this time a year ago I said, hey, I think Rocket Sanders is going to be in New York as a Heisman finalist. Now, maybe it was a little overreaching, but Sanders ran for about 1,500 yards 2 years ago. It is really a good year for running backs in this league. And there's guys we haven't even talked about. And if the guys that are hurt that we led the show off with, they're in here too. I mean, I didn't really realize how good of a year it was in the league for running backs until we did this.
It really is. And yeah, I'm excited to see what these guys can do. But yeah, the list is long, and I know you put a couple of guys in there tied for fifth. I mean, there could have been a number of guys on this list, which again sets up for what could be a really fun 2024 season. So that is our top 5 running backs in the SEC.